hopefully you're smart enough that you're seeing these things too. There are very precise signs of warnings. You know, the signs that are recorded in the Harbinger are distinct warnings that are given to a nation that are in defiance and have departed from God. We're in a critical time of transition right now. We watch the spiritual and physical decline of America, of the world. This new caliphate from the Muslims, which has traction like past caliphates have not had because of political correctness and fairness and all of the things that are making it possible. Some people are saying that this meteor was a message from God. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but Russians are suspicious of that. Some thought this meteor was a UFO or an alien invasion. And why would they think that? Well, because there's an increase of UFO sightings. The Bible says that God sends us these signs through natural calamities, that Christian clerics all over the place are saying that this is very unusual the way this is fitting together. This is a time like no other time in history. We have to really rejoice in the fact that His time's at hand. This is incredible. Look, if you want to see these videos, these UFO sightings, and some of these things are very clear, more clear than they've been in the past. Like I said before the break, this is an unprecedented time. I'm not saying, and let me make this clear first. UFO does not mean alien spacecraft. UFO means unidentified flying object. Unidentified. It's not identified as an alien craft full of little gray people. It's unidentified because if we knew what it was or who was in it, it wouldn't be a UFO. Do you see what I'm saying? And I personally find it a little strange that just like the recent video of this cigar-shaped thing in Mexico, that it showed this cigar-shaped, what they're saying is a UFO, going over a volcano that has steam coming out of it. This volcano was erupting. Something's coming out of it. And it showed some smaller UFOs also coming in after this long cigar-shaped thing. And I know not all UFOs are associated with volcanoes or weather phenomenon, but it makes me ask the question, could this have something to do with the volcano? Could it, the classic swamp gas theory, could this have something to do with some sort of light phenomenon that comes from an erupting volcano or the gases that come from it? Why would these UFOs be attracted to a volcano? I also seen a video of these UFOs, of strange lights that were acting very strange in Brazil. Some of you may have seen that. That's also on YouTube, where these three lights just interacted and changed and moved around. And there was no volcano or weather phenomenon associated with that. But these were just very strange lights that were in the sky and moving around in strange configurations. Now, I don't know what they are. Everybody can speculate, but like I said, if we knew what they are, they wouldn't be UFOs. They wouldn't be unidentified flying objects. We would know what they were. And the rest is just speculation. So with that in mind, could this have something to do with all of these bizarre, massive deaths the birds and the fish. Could this have something to do with it? Most people read from the papers. Now, forget most of what you get on the news, because the news is not going to tell you really the truth. But we are seeing some patterns. We're seeing a big picture of what's happening in the world. One of these things has been happening with greater and greater frequency, and that's these mysterious animal deaths. Something that people are calling apocalypse of the animal world. There's only a small percentage of these mysterious mass deaths that actually took place. But these are things that it's downright troubling. These birds that fell from the sky, they're saying that the autopsies say that they died of blunt force trauma, but all they were doing was flying through the air. Now, I did a program a few months ago on our shifting magnetic poles, because we are in the process of shifting our magnetic poles. And you can always go back and listen to that program. There was some very convincing evidence there. The airports in Florida that had to change their runway designations because their compass was off by 10 degrees. So these runways that were due north were no longer due north. They were now 10 degrees off. Not that the runway had changed, but that the magnetic compass had changed 10 degrees. Now, 10 degrees is huge when you're talking about an airplane that has to fly or land or take off by instruments. If it's foggy or, really bad weather, something like that, they have to use their instruments. And if they know that runway is due north and they get down there and it's not there, it's 10 degrees off, they're in trouble. So they had to redesignate these runways because the compass was 10 degrees off, and that's happening around the world. Now, here's my point. Researchers found a few years ago that this phenomenon of animals being able to be taken a couple hundred or even more miles away from their home and dropped off, or they get loose and the family drives away. They're in, as you know, I'm broadcasting from the beautiful state of Oregon. Well, if somebody here in Oregon had gone on vacation to California and they lost their dog, couldn't find it but had to go home, they'd have to leave without their dog. But yet 2 weeks later, the dog shows up on the porch. How did the dog find his way back? Researchers found that there's a magnetic fluid in their brain, and they use this magnetic fluid like a compass, where they turn a direction that feels correct in this magnetic fluid. They know the which direction feels right. So they found that these animals just go the direction that feels right according to this magnetic fluid. I don't have the details of it in front of me, like I did on the program, but that's how they navigate their way back. Well, we know that there's birds that navigate the same way, and there's fish that navigate the same way. So could it be that, no, I'm not saying it is, but I'm raising the question, could it be that this magnetic pole shift has something to do with these birds and fish ending up dead? I mean, could it be that this magnetic fluid is thrown so far off of kilter that it just explodes in their head? Blunt force trauma. There's no exterior damage of the fish or the birds. There's not a single feather that's ruffled, except for the impact of them in the ground once they're already dead. But yet they have the blunt force trauma. And these seem to be birds that navigate, not all birds, but some birds that navigate through this magnetic fluid. So that raised another question. And that other question is, why didn't it happen to all animals that navigate that way? We don't have massive cat or dog deaths because of this. Well, it turns out that there's different kinds of this magnetic fluid. So this fluid for a bird is different than that of a fish and different from that of a dog or a cat, whether it be by chemical makeup or by quantity or how it's used. So maybe it only affects certain ones to the point where they die. Maybe these other animals, and I'm just speculating, maybe these other animals, dogs and cats, other breeds of fish or birds, are possibly use it differently or have a different chemical makeup. But because of this pole shift, this magnetic pole shift, it just affected certain ones. And we know this pole shift is happening, so there's no doubt about that. These poles are about to flip. And like I said in the last program, it's not going to be a thing where we lose our gravity, because it's our magnetic poles are our shield from solar flares. So that when that plasma comes from a solar flare, it's our magnetic field that's kind of our force field, our barrier that sends it off in other directions, even though some of it does come through. It's our protection, and they found huge holes in it because it's all shifting. So it's not like it's going to go away, we're going to lose gravity, and everybody's going to float off the earth. It's not like that. But it made me wonder about this, about all of these dead animals, because it's happening now even more frequently than it was even 2 years ago. And I'm going to give you some examples of this. It really started probably about 2005 or 2006, and it's been increasing ever since. So let me give you some examples of this. I have a list in front of me, and I'm going to share this list with you. And it's not real long, so hang with me here. In June 2010, 82 hippos died. Do hippos use this magnetic fluid? I don't know. In January 2006, 200 sea turtles washed up on shore in El Salvador. We know sea turtles do use it. Millions of honeybees started disappearing. We know honeybees use this magnetic fluid. According to the Department of Agriculture, bee colony death rates were 29% in 2009, rising to 34% in 2010. The four main bumblebee populations have plummeted more than 90% in the last 20 years. That's just about that coincides with the time it takes for our magnetic poles to shift. There's been a mysterious fungal disease that's been killing bats across the U.S. since 2006. More than 1 million bats have died in 2008. 60 pilot whales beached themselves along the coast of southern Australia. A week later, 150 long-finned pilot whales did the same thing. January 2009, 45 sperm whales. 45. I know whales do this sometimes. 45 of them stranded themselves on a sandbar in Tasmania. 194 of the same on the coastline in March. In 2009, hundreds of pelicans from Oregon to Mexico were found dead. 2009, 1,200 penguins were found dead in the southern coast of Chile. Millions of sardines washed ashore nearby. Sardines and these pelicans. Thousands of flamingos abandoned their nest in Chile, leaving 2,000 chicks to die in their shells. 60 pelicans were found in Chile's central coast. What's happening in Chile that made all of these things happen exclusively there? Was this the hole in the magnetic field over Chile that caused this? I don't know. I'm raising that question. Maybe you have some ideas of your own. I'm just bringing up some possibilities. But all of this is compared to nothing compared to 2010 and 11. Thousands of dead walleye fish washed up in Lake Erie. Millions of camels, goats, sheep, cows, yaks, and horses died in Mongolia. 503 manatee cases were found on the Florida coast, and it happened again in January 2011.